details, but at the end of the day, we will have a summary of our achievements and so on. Skills, vocational training, technological transfer, and innovation system were some of the things the speakers mentioned. Today, we are going to deal in detail in mining. And we hope that the people from South Africa or from Turkey and other regions who have come here will be able to give us more information how we can convert our mining into an international product. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Please put your hands together for the Director General of the Northern Elders Forum for that very elucidating recap. We are starting the day with an interactive session, and this interactive session is to dovetail into the main presentation of the day. It's titled Unlocking the Potentials of Northern Nigeria in Mining, Agriculture and Power. The moderator for the interactive session is Mariam Musa Yahya, Director General, Northwest Governors Forum. Please put your hands together for Mariam Musa Yahya. While she's taking her seat, let me very quickly also call on the panelists. We have the former Senate President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as the #1 panelist, Dr. Abubakar Bukola Saraki, CON. The second panelist is another key legislator, someone who has also proven his mettle, Right Honorable Yakubu Dogara, former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Federal Republic of Nigeria, CON. Please put your hands together for him. And then we have specialist consultant, development specialist consultant, Malam Omar Nuhu Mohammed, to complete the panel. Please put your hands together for Malam Omar Nuhu Mohammed. Because we will begin by making sure that we have our time on our hands. We will not make too many introductions. Very, very short introductions will be made by each person, and then we go into the interactive session proper. Once again, the title is Unlocking the Potentials of Northern Nigeria in Mining, Agriculture, and Power. This is a prelude to the main paper of the day to be delivered by Mr. Mohammed Dean, who will be speaking to us on harnessing technology as a driver of development in northern Nigeria. But for now, let's listen to the moderator, Mariam Musa Yahya, who will introduce her panelists and go straight into the issues. Over to you, Mariam.
Thank you, MC, and Your Excellencies, distinguished leaders of the Northern Elders Forum, esteemed captains, industries, development partners, and members of the diplomatic corps here present, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you. It is my honor to welcome you to this panel discussion, Unlocking the Potential of the Northern Region across the sectors of mining, power, and agriculture. So this conversation we're going to be having this morning is anchored on the expertise of 4 leaders here seated with us today. The last one just joined. Welcome, Honorable. Their portfolios collectively reflect the very pillars of regional integration, which is why we're gathered here today. Senator Dr. Abubakar Bukola Saraki, former President of the Senate, brings deep experience in governance, institutional reform, and innovative financing, which is very critical for designing the structures of resources to deliver cross-border projects. Right Honorable Yakubu Dogara, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, offers unmatched legislative and political insight. He reminds us that no regional framework can thrive without strong federal and state alignment, policy continuity, and legislative safeguards across election cycles. Honorable Bello El-Rufai, member of the House of Representatives for Kaduna North, represents the voice of a new generation of leaders that we have here today. His focus on youth participation and job creation will ensure this plan is anchored in the aspirations of northern Nigeria. It's young people, which are its most powerful demographic. Umar Nuhu Muhammad, the development specialist and consultant we have here today, will ground us in evidence and economic logic, mapping our state's comparative advantages and showing how specialization can drive integration of, instead of competition between all our 19 states. I strongly believe that as a collective, this panel reflects 4 essential levers of transformation: governance and financing, legislative and political alignment, youth leadership, and economic integration. As we begin, I invite us not just to exchange ideas, but to push for clear commitments that will turn dialogue into durable action and help shape the future of northern Nigeria for generations to come. I'd like to start with you, Your Excellency. Looking at the theme of the conversation we're having here today, unlocking, the potential of our region around these 3 critical areas. Looking at, governance frameworks, we all know that regional plans often fail at the execution layer. We talk a lot, but when it gets to implementation, we have a lot of, failures here and there. What single institutional mechanism, do you think we can have? Are we looking at like the Northern Governors Forum Secretariat or a new intergovernmental compact? Would you back, in your opinion, what institution do you think can back the region?
Thank you very much. Let me just recognize and thank the conveners of this conference led by our elders. I'm putting emphasis on that, and let me recognize former Honorable Speaker, that member and panelist, the Honorable Member of the House of Representatives, all the leaders here. For the sake of time, let me go here. I start when I say I want to recognize the leaders here who have made this possible, and it goes back to answering your question. Because I think the mistake we probably want to make quickly is to dive into the details. And that's where the mistake starts from. I'm speaking with my very humble experience. Why do I say that? It is not that we don't have plans, or it's not that we don't have people who are capable of making those plans. But let us take this morning as a good example. The people who will give you that commitment, because you asked for a commitment, are not here. The people who would make it happen, meaning either leaders in the political system or business world, are not here. So the best we're going to achieve here, I hope, is that we're going to discuss the issues. But if we really want to make a change as regards unlocking the benefits and ensuring the right framework, we need to talk to the decision makers and the people that will implement and make it happen. I was telling somebody earlier on that if the topic was unlocking the potentials of regaining political power, this place will be full. There will be people standing as well. But the reality is that this is the power, and this is how we get it wrong. Economic power and improving on education and power and infrastructure is what is going to reform northern Nigeria. We should continue, and so it is a multifaceted thing. It can't be just one mechanism. Starting from the top of purposeful leadership, starting from what I call deliberate leadership. Deliberate leadership means it can't happen by chance. It can't. It's not. We're not going to unlock mining by chance. Because if we ask ourselves, even in the 70s, when we had the oil map, It was not by chance. We decided in the 70s that this is our plan. So we need that level of commitment. We also need to understand, like, for example, they need to be also largely, maybe because I'm biased because of being someone from legislative, you need a legislative framework. Because some of these commitments are long-term commitments. Anybody who's going to mine is not going to see his return of investment.
Tax incentives. They look at the issues of security. How secured would my investment be since I've not stolen the money if I put the money here? Honestly speaking, some of these factors are missing presently in the North. And I dare say even Nigeria. Even as I was making my way here, I was reading something about the crisis involving an investment that Dangote has put in this country. That's transformed us, we used to carry the shame of importing what we produce and exporting what we don't have. And this man has done something that has changed this narrative, restored our pride of place. I understand that there are issues, but we must insist that such efforts should never be allowed to go down. The reason is simple. If we allow it to go down, then the thinking out there is that, well, if they cannot protect their own, what more of us that are out and trying to come into the country? So these people are rational. They see what is happening. We don't like it. They don't like it. I understand there are issues, but those issues must immediately be resolved in the national interest. So I believe I've said a lot. I don't want to take too much of our time, but I still have a perspective as to how we can move forward in mining, in agriculture, and then even in the issue of power. There's a lot that can be done, but honestly, the first step starts with us, not legislation, not policy. I wish most of our millionaires in the North, and there are plenty of them, will find time to begin to invest and unlock these opportunities in mining, agriculture, power, rather than ferrying our monies to Dubai, to Egypt, and to so many other countries. We are creating economic buoyancy in other regions, in other countries, while simply abandoning people to their fate. You can imagine if we have just 1 million farms set up, or mining ventures set up in the North, employing just 50 to 100 staff. I'm telling you, we have resolved issue of food insecurity, we have resolved issue of banditry and all those associated crises. But we will do that. Can we do it? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sir, for that very deep insight. And I believe this should trigger a sense of responsibility in everybody seated here today. We need to look inwards, identify our collective comparative advantages, and see how we can come together under one umbrella to drive development across our region. Now, this drives me to my next question to our development consultant here seated. Talking about comparative advantages, each state, Kaduna's, Kano's commerce, Niger's agriculture, Zamfara's mining, how should roles be allocated to avoid destructive competition within the 19 states of the North?
Thank you very much for that. And I can recognizing the convener and our elder brothers here on the panel, and my colleagues as well. Thank you for having us. So, destructive competition. I think, first and foremost, we have to understand that competition is good. Competition brings about innovation, brings about efficiency, at the end of the day, competition brings fair prices to consumers. and it drives excellence. So not all competition is bad. So starting from that premise. Now, indeed, most of our states have their unique comparative advantages, but we should also be cautious not to be too prescriptive when it comes to comparative advantages, when it comes to investment, private sector investment. Where we seek for collaboration should be in areas like infrastructure, primary infrastructure, across the region. For example, where a congregation of states have the potential to come together to sort of explore renewable energy or hydro or rail connectivity or roads and the likes, or irrigation infrastructure across that will unlock agriculture across certain platforms. When we come up with regional development plans, we should be careful that we don't make them prescriptive to say that agriculture should only be in Niger because it has the land and not another state. At action level reduces efficiency and innovation. If we look at countries like China, where they've kind of, within their provinces, they have delineation, so to speak. In Guangdong, you have the apparels, you have and so on and so forth. Shanghai is industrial, and what have you. All of those are at value addition level, not at primary production level. So if you force delineation at primary production level, you are going to stunt growth. So we have to really be careful what we are prescribing. So and also promote collaboration in primary infrastructure development that would unlock different opportunities. For instance, some states have ability to do, so the northwestern states, for example, because of the hydro that they have in different states, can come together and have a framework for how they're going to sort of come together and facilitate that process. And in facilitating that process, it's not to say that the public sector must itself do it, it's to create the framework how to unlock private sector to come in. And as Right Honorable said, some of these things, the frameworks require us to think through what do private sector investors actually look for in order for them to find a destination attractive to come in. The other thing I want to say is when we're designing regional frameworks, we also, we keep saying we have all the plans, at its implementation, but to a large extent, a lot of our plans stop short of giving us the direction. So plans, you see within plans statements like, infrastructure should be provided by who, how much, where's the resource coming from, where is it going to be done? It's not in there. I mean, look at our even medium-term expenditure framework as a country. It has those kind of provisions. You can say it's at a wish list level. Yes, they all say the right thing, what we should do, what we should focus on, it's fine. But at the end of the day, if no one understands who's going to do what and where that resource is going to be mobilized from, then that plan becomes stunted. It will never be implemented. So we look at our plans and ensure that there's an action plan that follows each framework that defines exactly how everything is going to be done, who's going to do it, and how it's going to be done. Let me rest at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, and thanks for also bringing up the issue of frameworks, which is very critical. We have a lot of these frameworks. How do we integrate it, and have a regional framework, a unified regional framework that we can, complement across board? How can we collectively manage our assets? How do we share these assets in our region, to trigger economic development? But again, you would agree with me, this has a lot to do with our human capital. Looking at the population of our country, the northern region also covers, a large number there. And most of this has to do with the youth. We have a lot of youth that are being underutilized, which is one of the major reasons why we have some of these challenges, you'll agree with me, that we're facing right now. So now coming to you, Honorable Bello, happy to have you here. You know, as a region, apart from landmass, is the youth, our youth, the young people of the North. You know, what formal seats do you think about now in terms of agriculture, in terms of mining, in terms of power? How do we bring them in to co-decide, not just consult, to be in the driver's seat? Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I would like to also stand on existing protocols and thank our parents here, the compass and direction of the North, in particular, our Northern Elders Forum, led by the convener, all the guests here present, Your Excellency, our President of the Senate, and His Excellency, our Speaker of the House of Reps, and Doctor. It's truly an honor to be sharing this stage with you. I'd like to thank the organizers of this event for granting me this honor, particularly my younger brother, Khalil Nura Khalil. It's nice to be here. I begin by thanking the two leaders here with us. And my reason is quite clear. And I think I'll come back to young people as you rightly asked. The 9th National Assembly, which I worked in, but as a senior legislative aide to Senator Obasani, the governor of Kaduna State, passed the Not Too Young to Run Act. Now, that bill essentially reduced the age for young people to be able and eligible to run for office, particularly the House of Reps and so forth. And it was assented to by the late President Buhari, may God rest his soul, and it wouldn't have been possible without His Excellency Senator Bukola Saraki, perfect chance to show what can happen if civil society, in this case, the likes of Yaga, Enough is Enough, sit with policymakers, legislators to find the way forward. Now, that's the bill. Now, if the bill allows young people to come in, and these young people do not believe in respect, mentorship, innovation, uplifting others, then the bill is pointless. This is why some of us, not just myself, they call us the young parliamentarians, are trying our best to stand out so the door is open for more young people. But you see, for me, the North is at a crossroads and facing a double-edged sword. I liked how you put it. I still think where the population, it could be an asset, but quite frankly, it isn't right now, because the most that get recruited by bandits are young people. The young people doing cyber crimes are also within our group. Actually, I keep saying I'm young, but I'm 37. I don't know if I fall into that category anymore. There's been some progress in terms of appointees. This particular government has shown that a lot of young people are heading government agencies. You have my brother Khalil in Seni. In fact, Your Excellencies, you had Aminu Waziri, a brilliant young man working as your SA in the Senate back then, and Honorable Dogara had Rinsola Abiola, who now works for us. So I think in terms of appointments, we've seen a lot of progress. But you know, election is a whole different matter. When young people speak about running for office, you know, the theory is one thing, and the other thing is another. I think young people stopped inviting me to events because when they asked me to run for office, they thought I would say, have a good speech. The first thing I told them is have a there is potential, it's clear, you know, but I don't think power should be given to young people or opportunities if they're not qualified for it. You know, as long as our public schools are not in good shape, as long as our lecturers are not paid well, as long as our students are not learning with pads, are sitting on the floor, then how do you expect them to be competing with students in Shenzhen, in London? It's practically impossible. So for me, when we speak about the North, I think His Excellency Dogara put it very well. There are certain basics we need to work on. For starters, we need to sort out power. Honorable Dogara and the Senate President were quite humble, but I was a legislative aide when they led the National Assembly, and quite frankly, because we forget easily in this country, the attempt to decentralize certain things from the executive list, which power was, like police, started with them. Granted, it was finalized under the Ahmed Lawan-led Senate and the Femi Baja-led House. It means any state government that has abundant solar can set up a power company to generate, distribute, then what are we waiting for? And a lot of young people have given up hope in terms of careers and jobs, so they're into entrepreneurship. Now, whether you tell them to go back to the farms or set up a tech company, if we don't have decent power supply, how can they compete with their mates in Accra? And so I think we need to come back to certain basics that we must sort out before we even start discussing the future of we, let me put it in quotes, I have to pretend to be a big man now, young people and what we can contribute as our quota. I think the potential is limitless. I think young people should accept mentorship. They should realize that slow steps could take you further. And I know I'll be attacked on X because I am a student of privilege, but I still think the system is the same. You know, so that is my view on that for now. And I think we're heading in the right direction. I think a lot of leaders now see the value in young people, but you shouldn't just expect a seat at the table because you are young. You know, that doesn't necessarily mean you're good, or, you know, we need to watch it. I currently have legislative aides myself, and none of them is under 40. You know, in fact, the aide that wrote my draft this morning is a brilliant first-class graduate from Benue State, Duse Kwaku, and I'm right, looking at what she wrote, and they're better than what I prepared to say now. So is she qualified to be in my position? Perhaps. But I made sure all my legislative aides are under 40 to give young people a chance. But yet, when it comes to dealing with my constituency, if I didn't have the wisdom of certain elders and older brothers, I probably would have been recalled by now. So it's a bit of a balance. Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for that, Honorable Bello, and I would like to say you're still young. We are all still young, alhamdulillah. Thanks for that insight. So I had like a lot of follow-up questions prepared for these discussions, but just like I had mentioned at the start of this session, we have a wealth of expertise seated here with us, and most of those follow-up questions have been, you know, answered or thrashed adequately. So what I would like to do at this point, for want of time, is just to have like commitment asks, starting with you, Your Excellency. The background you've given us based on the insights you've shared, you know, do you think you could, would you recommend that, you know, a regional compact bill should be drafted and financed, like just to kind of sort of have like a roadmap for the development of the Northern region, do you think all the regional development commissions, all the governors forum within the region should come as one and have a compact that drives, a common stand of these 19 states we all represent here today?
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I don't think that can really make any difference. I think what we're trying to say is, in a plan, it is better we start with what is our objective. You take, for example, must we have clear objectives? If you say, for example, you take mining, and we say to ourselves that, we want in 10 years' time, to be able to increase our production of iron ore, and going to steel production, and want to increase our limestone production in the north, want to increase our gold. So it is better for us to be specific as opposed to just build new bodies or institutions. So now, if we have that plan, while processing that plan, the rest will fit in. What do I mean by that? So take countries like Guinea, DRC. These are countries where in the mining sector, it is not driven by government. You have investors. Rinto, they drive it. So if we agree that we want to address mining, the question is how do we go about it? So our plan should be based on what we've set ourselves as our objective. If it needs a regional body, then yes. But not to start first. We're creating all things that are not going to add value. Absolutely. Because, let's go back again to, if we look at the level of production of oil or how oil has come about, it wasn't by chance. If we didn't have the Totals, the Shell, the ExxonMobils way back coming here with a plan. But in mining, we're starting with the artisan miners. They can't take us where we need to go. So instead of us putting those institutions, I would suggest we take all these targets we want to have. If you take agriculture, when I was governor, I can speak with a lot of experience in this, where largely what you see across northern Nigeria is peasant farming. The main objective is to move that to agribusiness. And in doing that, again, you don't need any new commissions to do that. We should take the products. Is it to further increase rice production, totally self-sufficient, export to West Africa? Then we now start saying, who are those that can make this happen with the partnership of government? Then we put up a plan. So I think the plan should be driven based on what our objective is, as opposed to just setting up institutions across the place. It's just going to create bottleneck that would not take us anywhere. So that is what I think is a better plan that we should do.
Thank you very much, sir. Line with. Thank you very much for that. So a final follow-up question to you, Honorable Yakubu Dogara. I would like to ask if you would also, recommend a convening of a bipartisan legislative caucus on regional integration.
Hello? Okay, thank you very much. Sorry to disappoint you a bit. I will want to go the other way around. Actually, if we're talking about unlocking strategic opportunities in the North in relation to mining, agriculture, and power, like I said, we need to depart from doing business as usual and to do something that's radical and transformative. I want us as Northerners to accept the fact that help is not coming from anywhere. We have to take our destiny in our hands. First of all, what is the militating factor against the realization of northern potentials. Number one is issue of security. And I think it will amount to a travesty if we don't address that at this summit. My take is that with the kind of bloodletting we're witnessing in the North, if you are a person of faith, you will know that we are operating under a curse because it is human blood. And the effect of curse is that you sweat without results. And that is why we are sweating in this part of the country without any manifest result. It is unfortunate. I'm going to talk on issues that will affect governors. I wish they were seated here. Because it is said, if you have anything to say, say it to my face. I would have loved to say it to their faces. If it will mean pulling all the 19 northern states' resources together in order to tackle this issue of insecurity, we have to do it. Otherwise, what we're talking about here will amount to nothing in the midst of insecurity. We have to resolve that, even if it means pulling out resources across all the 19 states to tackle this. Once we have done that, the next question to ask is, how are we processing the funds that comes to the North? Somebody has said here that now so much is going to the states and the subnationals. How are we processing these funds in the North? Assuming nothing comes from anywhere. This is not rocket science. I said before, when we had regional governments, our fathers did it. So how are we now, how were they processing the funds that they were getting? And how are we processing it now? Just bear with me. I'll soon round up. Imagine the region where I come from, the Northeast. Honestly speaking, some of the things we're talking about, whether it is in agriculture, mining, or power, because I'm involved, I'm a farmer. Some of the resources that you need in order to provide the equipment are beyond the reach of an individual. But they are not beyond the reach of our governments. Take, for instance, the 6 states in my zone in the Northeast will say, okay, the only productive plan we have in the whole, to our shame, collective shame, as Northeasterners, is only Ashaka Cement. I don't know of any other productive plan. Okay, assuming our 6 governors now come to say, okay, let's pool resources together, establish another cement producing plant, since we have excess of limestone in that zone. And then they look for a businessman who can bring a guarantee, because government is not a good runner of business in Nigeria. We've seen how government-run enterprises collapsed. Look for a businessman, a fellow northerner. He brings a collateral, hand over the facility to him. Let him run and pay you dividends. But what do we see? We are seeing, instead of the governors operating, they are competing. We're seeing flyovers everywhere, flyovers that leads to nowhere. It is not leading you to a productive plan. It's not leading you to an established market. You just fly over and you think you have arrived. No, but we can use the dividends we can get from those joint ventures to build the roads, to develop education and all other social institutions. Take, for instance, Kano, Kaduna, Jigawa, establishing like the biggest range in Africa, for instance. It will cost them nothing if they pool resources together. Bring one businessman in northern and say, okay, run this plan, pay us dividends. We will have tanneries, we will create employment, we will create revenue. And at the end of the day, you can imagine the multiplier effects of that. Now, we'll go to North Central, Kwara, Kogi, maybe a Niger state. Let them too leverage on economies of scale and do something. You come here, Nasarawa Plateau, okay, Zamfara, Kebbi, Sokoto, for instance, can build a gold refinery. So all these goals, all these artisan miners, they now have a place, they can buy the thing from them at value. They can create job, deepen participation in that area of industry. And if you come to Nasarawa Plateau here, they can establish maybe processing plants relating to mining, like it's been done in Nasarawa State, for instance. But if you were to leave it to individual northerners, we don't have access to capital in this country. That is why we're beginning to think about de-risking loans. And that is where the agency I'm heading now, and the chairman of the board, comes into play. But these things have not been developed. So access to capital is a problem. No matter how patriotic you are as a northerner, you want to do business in the north, you want to establish a productive plan, you begin to look at factors of production. Do you have access to capital? Biggest. Access to land we have in abundance. Then energy. So you see, it's a vicious cycle. Once you don't develop any of the three, it affects the other two. But we can turn this vicious cycle into a virtuous cycle if we integrate the development of all these three sectors at once. We'll create employment for a teeming unemployed youth. We will deepen our revenue base in the north, and by extension, even federal revenue. We will achieve energy sufficiency and food security as well. And then obviously, we will be dealing with insecurity. So for me, the development of northern Nigeria is not a regional prerogative. It must be seen as a national emergency, because if the vast number of people we have in the north are not developed, Nigeria is going nowhere. So it is a national emergency, and it must be dealt with as such. But our governors should take the lead. That's the point I'm making. Thank you.
Thank you very much once again, Honorable. That was quite insightful. But before I come to you, Honorable Bello and Omar, I would like to throw another question to you, Your Excellency, as a follow-up to what Honorable Dogara just said. As a former governor and former chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, and also former Senate President, do you think this recommendation is possible?
I guess you're going to come back to me. Which recommendation, which one of Honorable Speaker's recommendation is possible?
The governors coming together to share resources to drive one common objective.
I think, let's be fair, I think some of them are doing the right thing. We can see what is happening in Nasarawa, we can see what is happening in Zamfara, where governors are thinking outside the box. What I think we should not make the mistake of is to think that that's where really it's easy for us to put the blame on governors. It goes beyond that. And that's why I go back to say that this is a collective responsibility. As I said, let me just give you a basic example. Governor Yobe, Governor Bonu, Governor Zamfara to an extent, Katsina. In Nigeria today, I'm an investor coming to Nigeria to set up some industry. Is there any special incentive I get for going to set up in those states in the north as opposed to setting up in Lagos? Zero. So why do we think an investor would take that risk, that investment, and go and set up? That is why I'm saying that we have to have an holistic approach to this. It's easy to find people to put the blame on. But at the end of the day, even if you put a super governor in those states today, you will not see those investments. But the point he's making is that, for example, if you partnership with someone in the private sector and say, look, like for example, you say in Bauchi now you have Ashaka Cement, it's been there for years. By now we should have a satellite train 2, train 3, train 3, train 4. If, again, I think that's the point he's making where, or Dito in Sokoto State, places like that. Those are the kind of collaborations. But to do that, as I said, we must have a plan based on what is our objective. If we say Northern Nigeria by year this, we want our cement production, then we begin to look at what are those things that we need to do. What's the role of the governor? What's the role of national government? What is the role of the businessman? And then bring them together. I don't think they can help, but I think the challenges today are so enormous. I mean, some of them, fair enough, are not thinking outside the box, because you have to think outside the box to bring this kind of investment. But you can contribute in your own partnership by saying, this is the amount it requires. I, X state, I am putting this investment, and then people have confidence. But beyond all that, unfortunately, in the last few years, we have the issue of insecurity, which makes it almost impossible for where an investor today will really have any, unless there are incentives where the investors can say, I know there are security challenges. So for example, there are security challenges in the South, where people are breaking down pipe. But a business now looks at the risk and looks at the return and makes a decision. But do we have those incentives that make anybody to go to they do not exist in a holistic manner. So I would to an extent defend the governors to an extent. This is an ongoing discussion between those in the National Assembly and those of us, the governors, in this aspect. Some of them are doing what needs to be done, and some of them need to go beyond just, as I say, go beyond just building schools, building classrooms. But at the same time, you know, we talk about them, you also talk about the voters. They will tell you, if I do all these things that people don't see, the voters will not vote me back. But if I do those things, those flyovers that go nowhere, people will vote and think I'll perform. So I think there's also, we the followership too, must take part of this blame. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. So my takeaway from that, to an extent is, yes, this goes beyond our governors, and then we need to have a, balance in prioritizing our tangibles and intangibles. Yeah, thank you so much for that. So I'll just go to you, Honorable Bello. I'm intentionally leaving you for last, our development specialist. Based on what we've heard from His Excellency and Honorable Yakubu Dogara, what do you think, in what capacity as youth do you think, what role do you think the youth can play in triggering, some of these things happening, some of these plans taking shape, actionable steps?
Thank you very much once again. By the way, I could sit all day even before Doctor, because it's very educative, and I think you've done well as a panelist. But before I get to this, I would like to, I forgot to apologize because I came here late, and I was the youngest, even though I found out that I'm attending this yesterday. But the reason I highlighted, and I'm sincerely sorry, is because I was scheduled to meet the head of an agency who's going to be doing a recruitment. And apparently, my legislative duties now entails finding employment for my constituents. But it is not. It is absolutely not. But like His Excellency said, if at the end of my 2-year tenure, I don't get jobs for boys in either immigration or customs, I'm certainly a bad legislator, because people forget what our rules are. So yes, I was delayed to do some lobbying, and they even moved the appointment. Now, the reason why I highlighted this is because the basics they keep mentioning, I forgot one, and it's essential to everything: security. By the way, our thoughts are with the people in Katsina, Benue, Zamfara mining recently. And sadly, yesterday, a brilliant young girl, since I'm here for the youth, Somto, that works in Arise, was murdered just in Katempe. So really, it's no longer even the tragedy you hear in the rural areas. I'm the only elected official here, and I would like to apologize sincerely as one of the leaders of this country, because we are not doing the right thing in terms of security, and blame can be given all around. But we have to know what our role is. Young people want me to get them jobs. I went to college in America and I did my IB diploma in the United Kingdom. My friends there do not work for ministries and agencies, as the Senate President said. They work for Google, they work for Oracle, they work for... So really our job as legislators is to create that framework, and I'll get to that in terms of the youth. But the job of a government is to create a conducive environment. One of my closest friends is here. He just walked in, Mala Afis Bayaro. During the tenure of the El-Rufai administration, I laughed when His Excellency, the Senate President, talked about the voters. I remember my father was Minister of Abuja here and did a lot of demolition, of course. But when he got elected as governor of Kaduna, you know, the Kaduna people wanted to see roads immediately. And I remember his first tenure, I remember asking him, I've not seen any roads, and he kept saying roads can easily be done. But they took that first tenure to audit, to partner with the likes of McKinsey and look at the financial situation of the state, accumulating in bringing Olam, $150 million agri investment into Kaduna State. And as the Honorable Speaker said, the value change that triggered is what should be the ideal relationship between a state government, a proper business. Honestly, I'll get in trouble for this, but I don't mind. If we will give the likes of Alhaji Aliko Dangote, Abdul Samad Rabiu, all the businesses to run, as long as those businesses will provide jobs, I'm perfectly fine with it. Because the Honorable Speaker is right. Right now, the capacity for capital is lacking. I'm partly responsible for that, but there are reasons, because I chair banking. Interest rate is still considerably high for the right reasons. You know, now on legislation, there's a bill I am personally sponsoring on factoring and receivables, where on MSMEs, factors could be created so young people can sell their invoices and raise capital. Is a practice that's very popular across the world, but in Nigeria, we've not tapped into it yet. Now, to conclude, there's a movement now under the leadership of Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, our amiable speaker, where they're promoting women representation to add more seats for women in the House of Reps. Maybe I'll see you there struggling with me. But there's advocates for that for young people as well, to earmark maybe 30% for young people and things. I have a problem with affirmative action. I think quality over things like that, you know, but I think the best thing we can do, those of us that have a voice, is to be decent role models and to show the older generation, the stakeholders, that we are willing to sit at the table, contribute as much as we can, and so forth, you know. But everything I wanted to add, my father's already added, really, you know. And I think the voters, you know, I like politicians that look at the eyes of the voters and tell them, look, this is not my job. This is not what I was elected to. I do that all the time. I might not come back. I don't care to come back. That's what we should focus on, doing the best you can with what you have right now. In the end, I can't call out governors. I'm not a big man. But the removal of subsidy has certainly transferred more resources to the subnationals. And as I rightly said, with the removal of certain duties, including rails, by the way, transport, in the concurrent list, I think a lot of governors in the north have a lot to answer for. I don't want to comment on flyovers and things, but you know, there's really no excuse right now. You know, the federal government, to its credit, under the Ashwaju administration, has pushed resources to the state government. It's up to us as voters, sorry, up to you as voters to keep us accountable. Once again, thank you very much, and sorry I took so much time. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Honorable Bello, for that. We appreciate that insight. I would just give you maybe a minute, unfortunately, to just round up based on all we have heard here today. You know, as a development specialist and consultant, just a minute. We're rounding up now. Okay, so unfortunately, 30 seconds. Quickly, please.
Okay,
Sorry.
I'm happy to be here. I mean, so, but the reality is that there are some fundamentals that we have to look at, right? And it's been mentioned, what's the objective, what's the primary objective, and the issue of security and things like that. But, so these things have been said. But the other fundamental that we need to look at is that, you know, these so-called plans that we put in place to do certain things are sometimes the problem. And you end up with projects where we've seen a state where they imported, you know, turbines for a power plant and, you know, all the accolades. But when it landed in the port, they realized that it was a gas turbine, and they're about 1,500 kilometers from the nearest gas pipeline. So there are things that do not make sense when we are planning. So let the planners do the planning correctly. Finance follows good investment. So if you've designed something right and it's going to be realizable, then you're likely going to get finance for it. And finally, I also want to say that in doing the objectives, so when we look at agriculture, minerals, and power, there are some fundamentals. If you're going to do power, you have to look at how do you put in place power purchase agreements to unlock the power to the public sector to come in. If you're doing mining and you're trying to get people to come, have you done a JOC? JOC is a Joint Ore Reporting Council certification that tells you this is what you have there. There are some basic things that are needed to be put in place before you can ever hope that you're going to attract investment into those sectors. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for keeping that brief. Thank you. I would like to quickly conclude this session by saying we've you know, listened to what all our panelists have said, and I think what comes out strongly for me is that we have to go back to the drawing board. By going back to the drawing board, it means going back to our value system as Northerners as well. I think that has also been left way behind, because if that is still in place, you know, I think we would have charted, you know, a better, you know, route for development across our region. So for us to unlock the potential across mining, agri, and power, not just these sectors, across board, we need to go back to basics. We need to align our priorities and also come as a collective to drive regional development. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much, Mariam and the panelists, distinguished panelists. Please put your hands together once again for very excellent, robust discussion on unlocking the potentials of northern Nigeria in mining, agriculture, and power. The photographers can come over now to take some photo opportunities for the panelists and the moderator. Please, while they are doing that, we will very quickly urge you to please, once again, appreciate them and appreciate their time with us. Thank you. Thank you. Very quickly, the next session is a presentation session, like we said much earlier, and Alhaji Mohammed Hayatuddin is the key presenter and will be talking to us on harnessing technology as a driver of development in northern Nigeria. Please put your hands together for Alhaji Mohammed Hayatuddin as he comes to the podium. But before he comes, I will very quickly read this citation on him. Thank you, sir. Alhaji Mohammed Hayatuddin, OON, holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Economics from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. Advanced Management Program, Harvard Business School, Massachusetts. He also holds a certificate in Strategic Leadership and Corporate Renewal from the London Business School, and also had a stint in making corporate boards more effective at Harvard, and also holds a certificate in Strategic Leadership Program from France. Prior to his establishing the Alpine Investment Services, Mr. Hayatuddin was the pioneer managing director, chief executive officer, FSB International Bank, PLC, a distressed government savings institution that Mr. Hayatuddin was able to transform into a major commercial bank in Nigeria. It arguably represents the best case of turnaround management and privatization in Nigeria. He was chairman, CEO of FSB International Bank, 2001 to 2004, Group Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer, New Nigeria Development Company, 1983 to 1988. The New Nigeria Development Company was the single largest diversified holding company in Nigeria. As Group Chief Executive, Mr. Hayatuddin provided leadership, direction, and oversight to 140 subsidiary and associate companies under the group portfolio. Mr. Mohammed Hayatuddin has, in the course of his career, been chairman / director of several organizations, including Nigeria Stock Exchange Council member, Northern Nigeria Investments Limited, Nigeria Hotels Limited, Kaduna Textiles Limited, New Nigeria Construction Company, Benue Cement Company, Sokoto Cement Company, Northern Nigeria, Virgin Nigeria Limited, 7-Up Bottling Company, PZ Kusos, and Inlex Computers. Please put your hands together. Mr. Mohammed Hayatuddin has been involved in a number of extracurricular and national assignments. As a member of the Institute of Directors, Director of the Nigeria American Chamber of Commerce, Director of the Nigeria German Business Council, member of the Nigerian Industries Transparency Initiative, member of the Africa Business Roundtable, member West Africa Business Association, member Presidential Advisory Council, member President Buhari's Transition Committee, and chairman of the Transition Committee on Economy, and chairman Nigeria Economic Summit Group for 2 terms between 2003 and 2007. Mr. Mohammed Hayatuddin founded the Alpine Group in 2005, a project development company that focuses on intervening in high-growth sectors of the economy through direct investment. Alpine's flagship project, the Ado Bayero Mall in Kano, which was commissioned in 2014, is currently the largest shopping mall in operation in West Africa. Please put your hands together for that. In recognition of his services to the nation, President Olusegun Obasanjo bestowed a national honor of Officer of the Order of the Niger, OON, on Mohammed Hayatuddin in the year 2000, 25 years ago. Malam Mohammed Hayatuddin is happily married to Hafsat, and they have 5 children. Today, or rather this afternoon, we will be listening to him to speak to us on harnessing technology as a driver of development in northern Nigeria. You will agree with me, we can't have a better person. Please put your hands together for Mr. Mohammed Hayatuddin as he comes over to the podium.
The chair of the Northern Elders Forum, Professor Ango Abdullahi, ably represented by the chairman of the managing board, our former chief of defense staff, Air Marshal Alamin Dagash, the board of directors, the President of the Senate, the former President of the Senate, Dr. Saraki, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, what an honor it is to be invited today to give a keynote address titled Harnessing Technology as a Driver of Development in this part of the country. It is such a contemporary and forward-looking topic that is rapidly transforming the future of the world in the 21st century. Cutting a long story short, the cold, brutal reality today is that while the world is taking a giant leap forward, this nation is virtually stagnant. Consider this year, 2025, where new cold chains and infrastructure networks make it possible for tomatoes from a village in Rwanda to reach Dubai in just 48 hours. Yet, in this same year, another farmer in Kano lost his crops before they left the village because of the absence of logistics, transportation, marketing, and distribution infrastructure. Are we therefore, as a region in the country, condemned to live in this reality? I don't think so. Let me begin with a small teaser. Can we together envision something with me in northern Nigeria where a farmer in Mambila can send fresh milk to Singapore in 72 hours, where our miners in Jos export not raw ore, but high-value products stamped ethically sourced in Nigeria, and our young people are building companies that compete on the world stage. I guarantee you that this is not a fantasy. It is a choice, a deliberate choice. And I believe the reason we're here today is to talk about how we make that choice together. First, there is nothing inherently wrong with us as a people. This is not about capability, but about connectivity. The infrastructure, the technology, the systems that link potential to prosperity. We know that it is possible to connect the dots. My experience tells me that we have what it takes to unleash abundant prosperity. So here's the question. Do we have the will to connect them into something actually much bigger? Because technology is not just a tool, it is the currency of competitiveness. We do know that the regions that digitize value chains, integrate markets, and mobilize capital will win in the next decade, and we can be one of them if we act with urgency and precision. Let's then move forward and talk about the purpose of this paper and the key takeaways. This conversation I'm having with you is actually simple but very powerful. First, we'll look at the opportunity in front of us in these three sectors and why they matter now more than ever before. Second, we present a strategic, actionable vision for how technology can ignite industrial transformation, drive growth, and solid, sustainable infrastructure in the region. Third, we can then connect all these things into one unified development model that makes us a magnetic field for attracting global investment. Fourth, we'll do all of these things by deploying the required capital, skills, and infrastructure. If you remember nothing else at the end of this speech, remember these 5 vital takeaways. 1, these 3 sectors do not exist in separate silos. They can, and they must be fused into one value-creating ecosystem where each sector reinforces the other 2. Second, technology is the multiplier. Because what we do know is that digital tools, renewable energy systems, and data-driven platforms can accelerate productivity, cut waste, and open new markets. 3, we have a blueprint to mobilize capital. We can attract blended finance, climate funds, and diaspora investment by packaging bankable projects. 4, very important area, skills development is as critical, if not more critical than even the roads, the bridges, the power lines, and the industrial parks. Because that's the most important, single most powerful ingredient that you need to make all of these assets go to work. 5th, we must take bold action. And therefore, this speech speaks to the need to come up with measurable goals, measurable targets that will properly embed the MAP 2025 Tech Compact. Ladies and gentlemen, with that purpose and those outcomes in mind, let us reframe how we think about industrialization in northern Nigeria. Because the old playbook will simply not work. We have to reframe our narrative from factories to smart systems. So for a lot of people, industrialization is all about having these big factories, heavy, expensive machinery, and very long production lines that convert raw materials into finished products, sold within the country and also without. That was the old way of doing things. Today, the most successful economies are built differently. They run on digital infrastructure, connected supply chains, and the ability to create and protect ideas and designs that have value. In this new world, information and innovation can be worth more than physical products. And here is the advantage for northern Nigeria, in the sense that we actually do not need to take a very expensive path. Many of these solutions are fairly easy and they're fairly cheap. So we can move straight into a digital-first, innovation-driven economy. Now, remember that once upon a time in this world, we were hunters and gatherers. From there, cities developed, and then there was the agricultural revolution, then leading to the first industrial revolution, the second, the third, and the fourth. I'm speaking to a very enlightened audience, so I don't need to walk over these things with you. The most important here is that we are now in the fourth industrial revolution, where artificial intelligence, big data, and advanced connectivity are merging the physical and digital worlds. So under these circumstances, technology is not just a support tool, it is the driver of competitiveness, period. It decides who is a leader and who is a follower. So for this particular region, it means we can actually leapfrog old models and go straight to modern connected systems. Yesterday, I was actually listening to a panel, and there was this raging debate between two groups. One group felt that it is better to just remain traditional and continue slowly through that trajectory before it can become an industrial country. Another group felt that you can actually jump that curve, leapfrog it, and get into the modern world. There may be no right answer. You can allow the traditionalists to do what they are doing until they catch up, but you cannot hold progress. And so it is very, very important to actually adopt these principles as quickly as possible. This, of course, means building smart industrial areas where fast internet, cloud services, and digital payments are as basic as roads and electricity. It means using online government services so that business registration, licensing, and customs clearance happen quickly and easily. It also means focusing on high-value sectors of the economy like software, financial technology, and creative industries that bring strong returns without needing massive physical infrastructure. And we do not really have to imagine what it looks like. There are numerous examples around the world. In India, The Digital India program built a national digital ID, fast payment systems, and open data platforms. The government simply just provided the base, and business built services on top of that base, from online shopping to healthcare, reaching even the most far away rural communities. Take another example, the example of Rwanda. Rwanda is small, not as much endowed as us. It has invested heavily in technology parks, nationwide internet coverage, and online government services. Combined with training programs and supportive policies, it became a recognized technology, industrial, and tourism hub. This demonstrates, like Senator Saraki and others have said, that political will, strong and robust leadership, policy coherence, and a clear digital-first strategy can elevate a country from being a renegade to a star player around the global stage. For our region, therefore, going digital first also means looking beyond mining, agriculture, and power to integrate other complementary enablers. These are exceedingly important. They, in and of themselves, cannot actually provide the solution that is required. What are these enablers? One, region-wide or nationwide broadband and affordable devices so everyone can connect. Everything sits on that, actually. Without that, forget it. Two, STEM education and skills training from school to vocation centers are critical. You need the people who are fully equipped to take on this challenge. Healthcare technology is critical in order to complete the ecosystem of human capital development so that it can reach rural areas and then improve planning. Four, modern transport and logistics, which must be linked to after trade routes. I'm talking of the African Free Continental Trade Area. Creative industries such as film, music, and fashion, based on our rich cultural history, must be globalized through online platforms. Then, critically, financial services innovation through mobile banking, microloans, and safe spaces for new ideas to grow. So if we can shift from our old factory mindset to smart connected systems, we will not just catch up, we will set the pace. And that brings us to why Northern Nigeria's position matters so much in the bigger picture. What do we have as far as the North is concerned? First, we are not starting from ground zero. This has been ably discussed within the last 1.5 days. Our strengths are real and powerful. We sit in a location that connects West Africa to the Sahel, Central Africa, and North Africa. We are connected to at least 9 countries, and they're all within reach. That makes us a natural trade bridge, a position that will only grow in value as the African Continental Free Trade Area expands. Second, we have a young, energetic population. Millions of people ready to learn, work, and create if given the right tools. Our land is rich, like the previous set of speakers have said, in everything that you can imagine in terms of natural endowments. Third, the opportunities ahead are enormous. We can position this region as both a physical and a digital gateway for trade across Africa. We can build cross-border e-commerce platforms, digital customs systems, and secure payment networks that make it easier for producers to sell anywhere on the continent. Why couldn't you tap into green bonds, infrastructure funds, and diaspora investment by presenting banking projects that meet global standards? We can also diversify into ICT, creative industries, logistics, and fintech, creating a more balanced and a future-proof economy. But we cannot do these things without facing our challenges squarely. And we know what these challenges are. Previous speakers have spoken to it. I'm not going to repeat it, so I'll jump to that. Apart from the challenges, there are also threats that are exogenous to us. global price swings, particularly of commodities like agriculture and mining, climate change. These are some of the issues that can be constraining. But for every constraint, they can always maneuver around and find a mitigant. So this region is a platform for Africa's next industrial leap. If we mobilize this strength, close our gaps, and act decisively, we can turn our position into lasting power. But, ladies and gentlemen, this window of opportunity will not stay open forever. Everything has its time. Changes are profound and they happen very, very quickly in this digital age. If we are serious, therefore, about seizing this opportunity, we must first of all agree on the conditions that will make success possible. And that's where I turn to next. There are certain essential basic conditions for success in anything you do in life that without them, failure is guaranteed. The first, again, the previous set of speakers and others yesterday had mentioned, if we have any chance of competing, not just within Nigeria, but across Africa and the world, we actually need more than resources and ambition. Within the region, in this vast landmass, which is a dwelling place for loads and loads of people, a large percentage of the population of this country, we need a shared vision, clear priorities, and the discipline to work together as one region. Right now, too many of our efforts are fragmented. Each state has its own plans, its own timelines, its own priorities. That approach has cost us substantial bargaining power, slowed development, and left opportunities on the table. Therefore, the first essential condition for success is unity. We must move beyond state-by-state strategies and adopt a coordinated regional blueprint, one that aligns with our priorities in infrastructure, education, trade, and investment. We also need shared institutions, regional councils or commissions with representatives from all the 19 northern states to coordinate policy, pool resources together, and track progress as we move along. And when we negotiate with the federal government, development partners or investors must speak with one voice to secure better terms and bigger projects. Most importantly, we must learn from other regions how they have successfully developed a cohesive regional development strategy. Once upon a time, at the time I was running NNDC towards the beginning of the 1990s when I left. NNDC was, nobody could come even remotely close to it. That was what I inherited from previous GMDs. It was such a stunning success. And we set the pace and set the example. The Eastern Nigeria Development Corporation, the Western Nigeria Development Corporation, called ODUA, were colossal failures at the time. But nothing is static in life. While NNDC was going on in the 2000s, although Lamis Jukos and his team are now trying to actually turn it around, ODUA decided to take the bull by the horns under civilian government over the last 15 to 20 years. So, for example, therefore, the Western Nigeria Development Agenda called DAWN, which was developed quite a while ago, it is actually a very robust document, has since been mobilized into a development commission that integrates all the southwestern states. And they have a permanent professional secretariat that drives long-term plans beyond political cycles. And I can tell you, I visit them a lot, even now, that as far as the governors are concerned, whatever their color, whatever their political stripe, they are joining the hip when it comes to development of Western Nigeria. They have built a unified identity that attracts investment, tourism, and talent. And we can today adapt these lessons to our own context. There is no shame in doing that. The second thing is that government and business must actually work hand in hand. Public-private partnerships can mobilize capital, share risk, and speed up the delivery of infrastructure and services. These need to be empowered by business-friendly policies, simpler regulations, fewer bottlenecks, and targeted incentives, so that we can develop economies of scale. The next essential condition for success, again mentioned by other people, is the need to actually invest heavily in research and development. There was a speaker from the Institute of Directors of the UK yesterday. I thought he made a very compelling argument yesterday that almost everything that is developed by UK businesses or European businesses or American businesses come from the research labs of the universities. And he gave the example of AstraZeneca and the other one, that these came from, probably Cambridge and Oxford University, plus a third one. So our applied research hubs in partnership with universities, polytechnics, and research institutes can develop solutions tailored to our challenges. Let me now turn to the Northern Elders Forum. For as long as I have known it, it has been a political pulpit, so to speak. And I'm now delighted that the NEF is making such a sharp pivot by integrating economic development into its philosophy in addition to its traditional forte of politics and governance. I'm not saying that you discuss your traditional forte, but perhaps it will do you well to actually create two directorates. One that is looking at the political and governance space, and the other one that is purely looking at the economy. This decision on your part, sir, to take on a higher role to serve as a true think tank for the Northeast future is highly commendable. We have actually seen this before. Sir Ahmadu Bello once showed how visionary leadership could mobilize private resources to support public investment in strategic sectors through such institutions as the NNDC and the Bank for the North. That same spirit of foresight and institution building must now be rekindled. You should not only generate bold ideas, but also sit at the table with the federal and state governments to secure strategic investments and national level support. And I might also add that you need a lot of young, vibrant, energetic people in your midst who will be in the engine room baking these things for you. And you provide support in vigilation and governance. It is also worth noting that Northern Nigeria cannot compete in the 21st century without mastering the power of data. Close to our people can channel capital directly into farming, mining, and so on and so forth. And with these conditions, basic conditions in place, we can turn to the first pillar of our plan, transforming our industries through technology. Pillar one. In today's world, the speed at which we turn our resources into value spells the difference between success and failure. I call it resource to revenue velocity. How quickly raw materials get converted into products and services that can be sold in the marketplace. In mining, blockchain can track minerals, from source to export, meeting global ethical standards, and attracting premium buyers. Artificial intelligence can help us find commercially viable deposits faster and cheaper, reducing risk. Modular processing plants near mine sites can add value locally, create jobs, and cut transport costs. In agriculture, precision tools like drones, soil sensors, and satellite imagery can boost yields and make farming more resilient to climate change, enabling weather prediction. Digital marketplaces can actually connect farmers directly to buyers across Nigeria and Africa, cutting out exploitative middlemen. In power, smart grids can balance supply and demand in real time, reducing outages. Pairing solar, hydro, and wind with modern storage solutions can give factories and communities reliable energy. From a financial viewpoint, technology also makes industries more attractive to investors. The benefits are too obvious for me to repeat them here. So, ladies and gentlemen, if technology is the engine, then people are the fuel. Which now brings us to the second pillar, inclusive growth and human capital development. Inclusive growth is not just the right thing to do, it is the smart thing to do. A region that leaves large parts of its population behind will never reach its full potential. Our greatest untapped asset is our people, especially the young ones. We have millions of them, brimming with energy and ambition. We must treat human capital as infrastructure and invest in it with the same urgency as we build roads, power, plants, and industrial. I dare say with even greater urgency. So one bold step is to create a digital skills sovereign wealth fund. What do I mean by that? I'm referring to a dedicated pool of capital funded by a small share of revenues from mining, agriculture, and climate finance projects. This fund would be ring-fenced for large-scale skills training, governed responsibly and transparently, and focus on preparing our people for the jobs of the future. Agri-tech, renewable energy systems, mining automation, logistics, and digital trade. We can deliver these skills through innovative scalable models, such as mobile-based apprenticeship that connect rural youth to global gig markets, allowing them to earn while they earn, modernized technical colleges, equipped with industry-grade tools to prepare students for high-demand trades, dual training programs co-designed with employees so graduates are job-ready from day one. And we must design these programs to be inclusive by intent, reaching women, rural communities, and people from all parts of the northern part of the country. The private sector must be a full partner here. Businesses must co-invest in training, offer internships, and help shape curricula so skills match market needs. Inclusive growth is about more than training. It is about creating an ecosystem where talent can thrive and policies that reward innovation and entrepreneurship. So if technology is the engine and people are the fuel, then infrastructure is the road that actually carries us forward. And that brings us to our third and final pillar. Sustainable infrastructure and regional competitiveness. In northern Nigeria, sustainable infrastructure is not just about building roads, power lines, and data centers. It is about creating the physical and digital networks that connect our industries to markets, our farmers to buyers, our innovators to investors, and our communities to opportunity. We must therefore change how we see infrastructure, not as a cost, but actually as something that actually confers enormous value and gives very high returns on investment. Technology can make these investments smarter and more efficient. For a moment, imagine rural roads monitored by sensors and drones, so repairs are scheduled before damage becomes costly. Imagine power grids that adjust supply in real time to match demand, reducing outages. Imagine transport corridors with predictive maintenance systems that keep goods moving without delays. Financing this transformation will require creativity. That's the next point. Blended finance. Combining public funds, private funds, donor funds, and so on and so forth can spread risk and attract bigger players. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition, guarantees and insurance are critical to making these things financeable and viable. What is the payoff? It is huge. Efficient logistics and reliable power lower production costs. The question is not whether we need infrastructure, it is whether we build it in a way that lasts, pays for itself, and keeps us competitive for decades to come. So, if we can just take a break here and ask the question, having put these three pillars in place, the next step, what is the next step? We must mobilize the capital to actually make it happen. So we build the vision, we have set the pillars. How do we pay for it? Capital, of course, is the lifeblood of transformation. Without it, even the most brilliant plans remain nothing but ideas on paper. But capital does not just appear. It must be attracted, structured, and used wisely and efficiently. The way we mobilize the money will decide whether Northern Nigeria's transformation is a slow march or a rapid leap. The first step is to identify truly bankable projects, ventures with clear revenue models, measurable impact, and the ability to generate returns for both investors and communities. And these cannot be vanity projects. They are commercially viable, socially relevant, and aligned with our development priorities. Once we have a pipeline of such projects, we blend our sources of capital, and I've already mentioned those sources of capital. Now, attracting capital is only half the solution. The more compelling part is how do you deploy it? It's even more important. So performance-linked financing must become the norm. Releasing funds only when agreed milestones are met to ensure accountability, reward efficiency, and build investor confidence. I have a suggestion here. To make this process faster, more transparent, and more accessible, I recommend that we create the Northern Nigeria Development Exchange, a digital marketplace for vetted investment opportunities. Imagine a platform where investors can browse a curated list of pre-screened projects, access detailed data rooms, and track progress in real time. A place where a pension fund in Lagos, a development bank in Europe, a Nigerian entrepreneur in Dubai can all find opportunities that match their criteria, confident in the governance and oversight behind them. The benefits are clear. Investors gain a trusted entry point into the region. Project sponsors gain access to a wider pool of capital. The region gains the resources it needs to build infrastructure, scale industries, and create jobs. By making capital mobilization a deliberate structured process rather than a series of ad hoc negotiations, we can move from occasional wins to sustained momentum. Capital is not just money, it is confidence, credibility, and commitment. So, as I try to round up, when the lifeblood of capital actually gets injected into our vision, we must channel it into the right arteries. In other words, integrated growth corridors, and special trade and industrial clusters that is focused on AFTA, African Continental Free Trade Area. We need to channel such capital with precision. So the most powerful way to do that is through integrated growth corridors, special trade and industrial zones, where mining, agriculture, and power are not actually separate and distinct entities, but chapters of the same book. They are not separate stories, but chapters of the same book. And they are mutually supportive and mutually self-reinforcing. When one grows, it lifts the other two. So it's a virtuous cycle, not a vicious cycle. But here is where the real opportunity lies. AFTA turns these corridors into continental gateways. By aligning zone infrastructure and trade process with AFTA protocols, we can give Northern Nigeria producers seamless access to a market of over 1.4 billion people. Such things as digital customs clearance, so goods move quickly, harmonized trade standards, cross-border e-commerce platforms, etc., etc. If we execute this vision, the North can position itself as a West Africa's AFTA hub, a center for process and factory exports, renewable power industry, ethically sourced minerals. They will create jobs, markets, resilience, and Northern Nigeria that is prosperous and progressive. I deliberately did not raise issues pertaining to insecurity, which had been mentioned by the previous speakers, because it's something that I think has been debated thoroughly, but it's an essential precondition to doing anything. The bloodbath is just unspeakable and is sinful, and it must come to a stop based on the recommendations that have been offered by other people. Everything we discuss here today, the pillars, the corridors, the capital, none of these will matter much without one final ingredient, a call to action for MAP 2025 Technical Compact. MAP stands for Modernize, Accelerate, Prosper. Three imperatives that must guide our actions over the next 5 years. Under this compact, we need to commit to digitizing at least half of agricultural value chains by 2030. So farmers, processors, and exporters are connected through transparent, efficient, and profitable systems. Training 3 million young people, in my view, by 2028 in technology-driven skills. You'll be amazed. These young people, their brains are like sponge. They can absorb, they can analyze, and they can process very, very quickly. Their brains are very congenial to learning. Achieving 40% renewable energy penetration by 2028 in just 3 years in our industrial zones. Therefore, cutting costs, improving reliability, and positioning Northern Nigeria as a leader in green industry. The next thing is embedding AFTA protocols into our trade systems, so our producers can access continental markets with the same ease as domestic ones. One very important point is that we require a regional data bank. You cannot do anything without a data bank. And this data bank should actually fall into 3 major categories. There are many of us who actually live in the past. It is time to take a forward motion. Anybody who is 60 or 65 or 70 or 75 may not actually be aware of a rising class of entrepreneurs who do not care about publicity, do not care about government. They hunker down, they run their businesses. There are so many of them here in Northern Nigeria. It's unbelievable when you, perchance, meet them at conferences. It is important that while we talk about the big boys in industry in the north and the south, there's a groundswell of business people who are actually emerging today as the new class. And we need that data. The NEF has to enable an infrastructure for actually collecting that data. The second data, which was even amazing to me, was that within the development space, when Donald Trump came into office, America retrenched development capital from all over the world. It was mind-boggling to me to see the number of very young, able Nigerians, men and women, who actually had been released from their jobs from various NGOs, exceptionally competent people, who can speak to their subject matter with distinction and competence. Very, very good people. We need to get that data. They are all over the place. We've just hired one or two into the Bordeaux Development Foundation, and it's just phenomenal, the kind of people who actually are available. You will find them all over northern Nigeria. So that database is important. Similarly, focusing on the universities, our science and technology institutes, polytechnics, etc., we need to amass that data. So I think these things are critical. I went to a conference abroad and I met at least 500 men and women, entrepreneurs who are distinguished in their own right. Diaspora northern Nigerians who are overseas, looking for opportunities here. And when I was chairman of President Buhari's Transition Committee on the Economy in 2015, loads and loads of them actually came and spoke to us, and they were willing to give their life and soul and just pack and come back home and do things. But we know the story, don't we? The subsequent story. So I think it is important, sir, for you and your team to actually mine that data, amalgamate them, aggregate them, and find ways in which you can actually access these three different groups of people. Finally, two other issues. Establish regional data, establish regional financial institutions to drive growth. Having been in this field for a very long period of time myself, I would like to recommend the following. NNDC is actually on its way to being restructured. And they are doing their best, I believe, to try to bring it to a position of preeminence. The chairman is here. The northern governors have had the foresight to actually allow them to bring in people from the private sector into their board of directors, to imbibe new norms and new ways of doing things. But the recommendation here is that we need one more regional development bank with focus, particular focus on mining, agriculture, and power. And it should be the combined effort of both the public sector and the private sector. Second, we will need two national commercial banks with a national license, because the capital threshold for licensing a national bank is much higher than that of a regional license. So two national commercial banks here, for the reasons which I had mentioned earlier. Two regional commercial banks with a regional license. One mortgage institution of a decent size. And a network of fintech platforms, which are much easier to actually enable a license. All designed to channel strategic investments and provide microloans to entrepreneurs and small businesses by the year 2030. This compact will not be a slogan, it will be a binding framework. Progress will be tracked by a MAP 2025 Implementation Council made up of representatives from the public sector, private investors, development partners, and civil society. Financing will be linked to performance. Funds will be released only when agreed milestones are met. But beyond all of this, This thing is actually our mindset. Do we have the will to actually carry this forward? It's hard, grinding work. It's not easy, because there are so many caveats, as lawyers would say, caveat emptors. These caveats are really the things that we should actually follow. If we don't have them, we better not start. And generals understand that. They do not go to war without ensuring that they have all the enabling ingredients in place. Otherwise, you lose that war. So please, I beg of you, think through these things very carefully. Do not even start if you are not ready. It's not going to be easy. You're going to meet a lot of challenges. But where there's a will, I believe there's always a way. So it is well within our own mind to choose either to be a market maker or a price taker. Whether we're accepting our destiny or refusing to accept is about refusing to accept our destiny to export raw materials and import finished goods. It's about building an economy that is resilient to shocks, inclusive in its growth, and confident in its place in the world. In conclusion, just one final quick point. The Northern Elders Forum has gone out of its traditional forte to actually embrace something that is a spark. You are igniting something here. Whether you did it deliberately or unconsciously, the people in this room and people outside all over Nigeria are going to hold you accountable to see whether you are actually going to continue embarking on this journey, or like many other things in this country, things start, people clap, compacts are signed, and everybody goes to sleep. This is not easy. But with the kind of leadership that we have, who are deeply embedded in the history of this country since the 1960s to date, and who have held eminent positions of seniority and responsibility in this country, we believe that you couldn't have started this without thinking it through. Thank you very much.
Another big round of applause to Mr. Muhammad Hayatuddin.